Hi, I'm Andrew Bryant, global expert on self-leadership and author of the new Leadership Playbook, Being Human while Successfully Delivering Accelerated Results. Contact me for leadership workshops and as a keynote speaker for your next conference or convention.
So viewers, today the guest who have joined the podcast is global keynote speaker and self-leadership best-selling author, and his book is sold to thousands of people. And actually, you might have seen him on Instagram, YouTube. You might have read his book as well. So you are going to listen from an expert advices, insights in regard of leadership, that how to become a wonderful leader in your industry. So thank you so much, Andrew sir, for taking out your precious time to join us. Thank you.
It's absolutely my pleasure, Raunak, and hello to your listeners. This is part of my mission to share the message of self-leadership around the world, so happy to make the time.
That's really incredible mission, sir. And actually, to begin with, I'd like to ask a very dominantial question, which is very crucial and very integral for people to learn and for aspiring leaders. Like, you have written upon leadership, and actually, when I was watching your books reviews on Amazon, you have explained 8 powerful mindset, thought process, and techniques, approaches to become a successful leader and to shape our mindset very strong. So what are those methods which you would like to explain that are very integral for individual who wants to become an unbelievable leader in their life?
Okay, well, we need to walk that back. That's out of my 2016 book. Let's go back to 2012 to the book that I wrote, Self-Leadership, How to Become a More Successful, Efficient, and Effective Leader from the Inside Out. In that book, my co-author, Dr. Anna Kazan, and I defined self-leadership as a practice, the practice of intentionally influencing your thinking, feeling, and action towards your objectives. So you can't lead others unless you first lead yourself. Now, everybody has an element of self-leadership, but we're not necessarily practicing it to our full capacity because we don't have as much free will as we think we have. We don't choose the time and place of our birth. We don't choose our parents. We don't choose our early upbringing or even our culture. So we are operating very much on automatic until we have some kind of wake up to, hang on a moment, I'm operating out of a series of patterns. What's really important to me? What is this internal narrative I'm having? Yeah. So the overarching principle for a successful life is to live a life on your terms. And when you live a life on your terms, you have to decide what that is. You have to decide, who you are, what your values are, and what your objectives are. And so that takes a little bit of introspection. It takes a bit of work, sometimes some coaching, and oftentimes some trauma in your own life. Sometimes something happens that challenges your worldview, and that's when you have to have that introspection, whether it is a health challenge, a relationship challenge, getting fired, going bankrupt. And at those moments, often we go, hang on a moment, is there a different way to play the cards that I've been dealt in life?
Right. And you said, and it is actually very practical insight you have shared. And actually, adding with that, question, I'd like to ask that how a leader should deal with overthinking. Like there are a lot of, works which is around, specifically, leaders. So how to deal or confront with that burden of loads of work at the same time? What are your insights you would like to share?
Okay. Right. So you've jumped from self-leadership to leader. So firstly, who is a leader? A leader is somebody that people will follow. So that's not necessarily a title. You could be a manager, and people have to do what you say if you have the power to fire them. If you are a leader, you understand influence. You understand tapping into other people's self-leadership, their desire to be the best version of themselves, and you move that towards a joint objectives. When you do that, you know what's important. You know that what's important as a leader is the vision, the mission, and engaging the people's hearts and minds towards that. So, if you ask me a question about overwork, well, what kind of work is it, right? Is it busy work? Is it firefighting? Because as I travel around the world working with managers and leaders, yes, they're busy. But are they busy doing the thing that they're supposed to be doing? Or, are they operating out of a limited frame of mind? Are they firefighting, running into burning buildings metaphorically or literally, doing the work they shouldn't be doing? A leader, their job is to influence people to give their best towards an objective. And if you're not doing that, what are you doing? Because the rest is busy work.
Right. And sir, you have shared a very practical thing that actually it depends upon the culture of actually the kind of work he is doing, the sort of people with him he is actually working with. So what are your insights in regard of procrastination, that how a leader should deal with procrastination? A lot of people fell prey to all these stuff, right?
Okay, well, if somebody's procrastinating, I mean, there are various psychological reasons for procrastination. But when we move towards something we want, the motivation comes in afterwards. People who are procrastinating are either overthinking the problem, or they're waiting for some flash of motivation and inspiration. And there is a huge confusion or misunderstanding about motivation. Motivation does not precede action. We need to take action first. When we take action and we make progress towards our objectives, then we feel the motivation. Right? So sitting on the couch waiting to be motivated to go to the gym, you're going to be still sitting on the couch. If you use the willpower to get up off the couch, go to the gym, you do some exercise, you feel good after you've done it, then the motivation comes to go next time.
Right.
So procrastinators are brilliant at overthinking, and they also fail to take action. So the smallest step, as Confucius said, or Lao Tzu said, some Chinese philosopher said, a journey of 1,000 miles starts with the first step. So, choose the direction you want to do and take the first step.
Right.
That's a big picture, but that overcomes procrastination. Now, if you are anxious about something, if you are creating monsters in your mind about what moving towards that objectives will do, then we need to talk that out and do some therapy around that. But mostly, people aren't motivated because they aren't taking action.
And sir, what do you think that what causes a person towards not taking any action, to become lazy or actually to become indolent? Actually, is it because of their addiction of doing this often and often, or what do you believe are the most effective habits or effective traits that a leader should adopt, actually must be?
So we move, as human beings, we have needs, wants, and beliefs, right? So, you take out the oxygen in the room that you're in, and you're going to be incredibly motivated to take action to get out of that room. If that room starts filling full of water, you will be incredibly motivated to get out because you need oxygen. We need food, we need shelter, and we're incredibly motivated to do that. But once our needs are met, our food, shelter, then it shifts to wants. What do I want? Do I want physical things? Do I want a new car, a house, a holiday? Or do I want to become somebody? Now, the motivation from a self-leadership perspective is becoming the person you want to be. We're all versions. So tomorrow is my birthday and I will turn 63. Now, I tend to think of that as becoming version 6.3. I don't believe that I'm aging. I believe I'm upgrading because I'm moving towards becoming a better version of myself.
Right.
Version 6.3 has a lot less hair than version 4.3 did, but hopefully has some more wisdom and definitely some more compassion. So what are we moving towards? We're moving towards, we want something because life doesn't deliver you everything you want if you just sit there. You have to go out and get it. Unless you're born of wealthy parents, and that has its own challenges, but most of us are not born of wealthy parents and given everything. Most of us have to go out and make our way in the world. Our parents may give us a head start, maybe send us off to school, but at some point we have to decide, what do we want? And then say, okay, here's what I want. And then look back and go, what is the work required to do that? And then you do the work. So self-leadership is, you decide what you want, you set a goal, you work out the activities required to achieve that goal, and then you self-regulate or self-motivate or self-discipline to take those actions. Every successful person, and I have met a lot of them, I could name drop like crazy on this podcast of the people I've interviewed or shared the stage with, they've all done the same thing. They've decided that which is important to them and they've moved towards it, regardless of the obstacles.
And sir, actually, it is very practical stuff you have shared. So I would like to moving towards a very integral question, which is actually very, akin to what I have asked you earlier, which is how do you differentiate between growth mindset and fixed mindset? You have taken a lot of seminars, inspired thousands of people. So you would have observed that the people with fixed mindset become successful, but very slow in comparison to the person who have growth mindset. So what are your, insights in regard of this?
Okay, well, there is a book, Growth Mindset, by Carol Dweck, a psychologist out of the United States, and she's defined it. I would have some refinements on that, and in fact, those refinements are in my latest book, The New Leadership Playbook, which came out in 2021. I think it's less binary than fixed and growth, but here's the thing. I've already articulated that we need to see ourselves as work in progress. We need to realize that the way that we see the world, the lens that we're looking out at the world through, is the one that we pretty much inherited from our birth and our parents and our early upbringing.
Right.
What we need to do is, in any situation, is to step back and say, how are we framing this? What is the contextualize? What are we missing from this? And a growth mindset is very much about, well, what if I was wrong? Can I argue against my own premise? So all of the CEOs that I coach, if they are saying, well, I want to launch this company or do this initiative or do this restructure, I always say, okay, give me your rational arguments for doing that. Okay, now argue against it. That ability to argue against your own ideas gives you that mental flexibility, the critical thinking. Right. And this is why I say that, people take control of their lives often when their frame and belief system is suddenly upended. They believe that everything is going to be fine, and then there's a financial crisis, they lose their money, or they get fired, or the person that they love says, I don't love you anymore, and goes somewhere else. Suddenly the world fractures and you have to look at it in a different way. And you have to go find your frame of reference. Now, I'll share a personal story for your audience. So I thought I was going to become a doctor. I was a very good science student, but they merged my boys' grammar school with the girls' high school just before my A-levels. So I didn't get the grades to do medicine. I got the grades to do physiotherapy. But I liked physiotherapy. It was a very practical science. I graduated. I worked at a London teaching hospital. I started working with athletes, and that opened my mind to human performance. I moved from England to Australia, and I built an entrepreneurial business of clinics. I had physiotherapy, acupuncture clinics, and I built a wellness center. But my business was disrupted by overseas competition, and I found myself in the year 2000 absolutely broke. Now, so suddenly, the economic disruption, my dream, my vision has been shattered. I thought I was right, and I wasn't wrong, but there were some things I missed. And so suddenly, living in a backpacker's hostel, $300,000 in debt, I have to reevaluate my strategy. And I was still in Sydney, so I went up into the Blue Mountains and I sat in the mountains and I meditated or reflected or stared out into the distance and, what the bleep am I going to do? So after a period of self-pity, I started really thinking about who am I? What's important to me? What's going to make a difference in the world? And I got a very clear vision. I saw a clear pond and I saw a pebble dropping into that pond and the ripples going out. And I clearly knew I was that pebble and that I needed to drop my pebble in the pond. And that message, of course, is around self-leadership, taking ownership of your life and career. And I thought, well, the only way to do that, obviously, if I'm going to talk about this, I have to live it. So I went from $300,000 in debt and I started setting up workshops and seminars and selling this idea and writing books. And I paid back the $300,000. I moved my business to Asia and I now work in 56 countries on 5 continents. So I proved the premise.
Right.
So, I have inspired, as you say, many people to teach my message and to share that out in the world. So it doesn't matter where you are, you can turn your life around the moment you take ownership, the moment you stop blaming, complaining, and playing the victim.
Sir, your journey is tremendously very incredible and actually inspiring. It helps people to learn from your kind of people in this universe to step ahead in their life. So, sir, as you are very expert in the domain of inspiring, of training people, sales, leadership, or actual marketing and all, and you are a best-selling author. So I would like to ask a very crucial question, that what are your advices for people who wants to become a successful leader in their life? And according to your experience, what are the important habits that they should incorporate? Like reading books is very casual and very general. A lot of people, a lot of speakers say that if you read books, you will learn. But what are some practical things which you would like to say, that if somebody wants to be like you, like thousands of people follow your videos and you actually your book, so your advices will incredibly help them.
Well, sometimes the generic advice is the right advice, but I actually say before, as well as reading, you should be writing. And you should be writing your journal every day. You should be capturing your inner narrative, the inner dialogue. You should be catching what you are saying to yourself. I was coaching somebody this morning who has been doing very well since we started coaching a few months ago. And he was saying, everything's gone well. And, I've had month after month, I've been making more income. But this last month, the income has dropped. And, I'm making that all about me, and it's attacking my sense of self-esteem. Mm-hmm. And I said, well, isn't that interesting? I said, you realize you just told me how far you've come, what you've achieved, all the work you've done in preparation. There's been a market downturn, income hasn't come, and you've made that all about you. Why is it about you? And that's the narrative he's telling himself. He's telling himself, oh, well, I have to manifest everything. And I say, look, we do create very much of our lives, but external factors do happen. The question is how we respond to it. Instead of going into a downward spiral, why me, it's like, well, stuff happens. I need to accept whatever happens. I need to appreciate what's happening, and I need to adjust my behavior. If there's a downturn in the market, do I just recognize it's a temporary downturn and take a rest, recharge my batteries, or do I adjust my marketing and sales strategy to deal with this? Is it temporary or is it permanent? Mm-hmm. And always putting yourself back into ownership, back into the driver's seat of the car rather than reacting, right? Now, life is never a straight road. We are always going to hit detours, traffic jams. The question is, how do we deal with those, right? Do we yell and scream? You always see those rude people at the airport. A flight has been canceled, and they're thumping the desk in front of the booking agent saying, don't you know who I am? And it doesn't really matter if the plane doesn't exist. It doesn't matter who you are. You're still not getting up on the plane. If you're polite and nice to the girl and say, what are my options? And thank you very much for your support. How can you help me? She's going to help you much more than if you thump the desk, right? So it's very much about how we respond and react to that. So writing, and if you do blow up, and it's very important because none of us are perfect. I mean, I've been writing and speaking about self-leadership for 25 years. But even every now and again, something irritates me and I'll get upset about it. And my wife will say, Andrew, go self-leadership yourself. And then I smile and I realize she's caught me out, right? Because something's triggered me. Right. And I'll go right down, what has triggered me? Why is it that thing triggered me? When I've done all this work, all this growth, all this development, what is the message? Because the things that irritate us, the things that cause us this, that is a problem with our own thinking. How do we improve the narrative? What could we say instead? How could we reframe that? This is not a problem, it's an opportunity. This person is being rude to me. Well, is that about me or is it about them? If somebody's rude to me, I go, isn't that interesting? What an opportunity to turn this person around. Or what an opportunity to just let this one go through to the keeper and not react, right? Because if the moment that person who's rude to me triggers me to be rude back, I lost the game. Now, occasionally I do lose the game, right? But if that happens, I'm going to go check my writing and I'll write some more. If I want to change a habit, if I want to lose weight, get fit, stop drinking alcohol, whatever, I'm going to write it down and notice all the things that come out of my mind. And as you read that back, you become the author of your own life. Author equals authority. You want to be a leader. People are going to believe in a leader who is leading themselves, who is an authority, who is learning, who is developing, who is prepared to say, hey, I made a mistake, but here's what I learned. Right. And you'll do that by writing as much as reading. When I read a book, I've also got a blank notebook. I read a book and I go, that's a good idea, but what's my take on that? So I will write that. So reading should not be passive. It should be active. If you read something, yeah, that's a great idea. How am I going to integrate that? How am I going to execute that? So hopefully this advice is a little less generic and very much more practical. But honestly, success takes work.
Right. And sir, it is very practical thing you have shared, that it is actually about how we respond to things and actually how we capture the opportunity, right? So sir, I'd like to add a very similar question, that do you believe in law of attraction, and what is law of attraction? And actually generalizing, you have expressed that generalizing is actually plays a very huge role to become successful in life, that we must write what actually we feel, and what happened entire the day. So what are your insights upon law of attraction and manifestation, right?
Okay. I think it's sold a lot of books, and my viewpoint is, I've already articulated. Decide what it is you want, right? Calculate the work required and do the work, right? So I could sit here and visualize a white Rolls Royce and meditate on a white Rolls Royce, but no white Rolls Royce is going to turn up in my driveway unless I work out what a white Rolls Royce is. I do the work, make the money, and I go and buy my own white Rolls Royce. That is manifestation, right? But I'm not going to poo-poo all of it, because I was just mentioning the chap that I was coaching this morning, right? So the moment he went into the downward spiral of lack, of the market has changed, I didn't make as much this money, made as much money this month. The moment he goes into that kind of fear cycle, that does tend to push away, right, what's happening. So I'll tell you another story. So when I'd lost all my money and I was looking for clients. It's very difficult to look for clients when you have no clients, because you feel this sense of lack. But I got a meeting with a CEO of a company as a potentially to be his coach, and I sat across from him, and we had a great chat, and he liked me, I liked him. But then he asked me the question. He said, "How many other CEOs are you coaching?" I looked him straight in the eye and I said, "If you hire me, you will be the first." And there was a horrible pause for a moment. But then I said, "But imagine how committed I will be to your success." Now, that CEO, I coached him on and off for over 20 years. He wrote the foreword to my most recent book. He's the CEO of a Silicon Valley software company. So, it's the belief in yourself. I had not yet got a CEO client. Subsequently, I got lots of CEO clients because I got the first one. But I had to manifest from a position of abundance. So here's my viewpoint. It is, I knew, regardless whether I had CEO clients, that I could add value, because I'd been a CEO, I'd studied the psychology, I believed I could be of value. So here's where manifestation comes from. It comes from abundance, but it comes from abundance of value.
Right.
I know what my value is, and I'm prepared to share that value. So my abundance today is giving you my time, for no remuneration, because my abundance is I have time. I have the knowledge, I share the knowledge at no fee. I'm putting it out there in the universe. And, one person might listen to this and say, "Hey, I want Andrew to come and do a speech for our organization, virtual or in person, or be a coach." It might happen, it might not, but it doesn't matter. The attitude is, I have plenty, I can pay it forwards. I know my value, and I can articulate my value. So many people I coach, I say, "Well, what's your value?" And they go, "Well, this is my job." And I go, no, that's your job. What's your value? Right? So whatever somebody does, let's pick something. They could be an assistant manager to a hotel, right? So that's their job. But what's their value? Well, their value is their knowledge. I was working with Unilever, and Unilever had their leadership offsite at the Taj Hotel when the bombings happened. Right, so the bomb hit the Taj Hotel in Mumbai. There's panic, there's smoke, there's fear, and there's all these CEOs, CTOs, CFOs of Unilever, huge organization. Suddenly, and everybody's a leader, but the leader in that moment was an assistant manager, 24, 25 years old, 6 months in the job. Her value was she knew the back route to get out of the Mumbai hotel, and she said to these, "You are the guests of my hotel." She had full ownership, and she led the CEO, the senior leadership of Unilever, to safety through the back rooms of the hotel. Her value was her knowledge, her value was her ability to take ownership and to lead men much more senior, much more well paid than her in a moment of crisis. That is true leadership. So each and every one of your listeners has value. They just need to learn to articulate that.
It is very practical, sir, and actually delivering value means you have actually gained a value. Because once I was reading a book of Rumi, which is who is a very great person and actually a very incredible, authentic spiritual leader at his time. He said, "What you seek is seeking you." So if we are getting value, we should spread value, right? And you have, and actually, sir, it is actually practical insight you have explained through your own story, sir. I'd like to ask one very crucial question. You have delivered many public speaking talks in front of thousands of people. So what are your proposition and actually advices for public speaking, peoples, how to face stage fear and how to deliver a talk and how time management poses a huge role in public speaking, right?
You don't want much, do you, Raunak? Okay. So look, here's the thing about speaking. When I first started speaking, the inner narrative that I had was, how can I look good in front of the audience, right? So, I was doing my research, I was trying to be clever, I was trying to come up with a great message. And I was moderately successful, but what changed for me was to not how do I look good, but how do I serve the audience? How do I make them look good? And to my previous point about knowing your value and adding value, as a speaker, for every speech I give, and I after this call, I need to prepare. I'm getting on another call for a speech for a robotic surgical company in the United States. I'm about to do a speech for them, and I need to write that. So, I'm asking myself, who is this audience? What are their challenges, and what can I do to make their life better? What can I do to inspire them to move towards the best version of themselves? So when I'm focused on them and not focused on me, there is no anxiety. There is no stage fright, because it's not about me. It's about, all that's about me is being a vessel to do a service for them. And so we see those speakers who have one story and they want to tell their story and make everybody cry, and it's all about them. We see very famous speakers who are focusing them on on themselves and say, I can be your guru and I can take you here. No, my viewpoint is make the audience their own gurus, right? Release them, don't turn them into sannyasins, turn them into their own gurus so they can lead their own lives. And when I do that, then, I'm empowering my audience, and then it's not about me. So I would encourage others to do the same. Yes, you need to develop your skill. You need to know how to design a speech. And if you go to my YouTube channel, right, there's a track. What do you call it? There's a playlist within my YouTube channel on how to be a professional speaker, and there are lots of videos and tips on how to do that. I would recommend you go there. I'd also recommend you join either a Toastmasters club or a professional speaking association. There is a Professional Speakers Association of India. I would highly recommend that you join that association and you learn from your peers. I'm the past president of the Professional Speakers Association of Asia. I'm the past president of the Professional Speakers Association of Spain, because I've lived in different countries, and therefore I've paid it forwards based on the knowledge I've amassed from speaking in 36 countries. So it is a journey to develop the art and science of professional speaking. But if you have a message, if you've had a moment in your life that's inspirational, right, then you need to develop a method and a methodology to take that to market.
Right, sir. And actually, it is a result of a lot of hard work and actually practices that if we will keep doing, then actually we will become that kind of version of best speaker, right? So it is a practice about it. So, sir, as we are approaching,
there is. I'm not quite sure I said that. I think you're paraphrasing me. Because practice doesn't make perfect. Perfect practice makes perfect, right? So, if somebody's playing golf and they have a wicked hook to the left, right? So, and they keep practicing, they're just going to get a better hook, right? So, it's practice with an objective, and it's practice with feedback. Right. It's who do I need to be to develop this speech? And I'm back to the self-leadership methodology here. And so it's, yes, going out in front of more audiences will help. Dale Carnegie said, the way to overcome public speaking fear is to just keep doing it until you don't mind anymore. But I think it's a focus on developing the skill, getting mentors or coaches to give you the feedback. Right. How is this coming across? In the early days, I would watch every speech, I would record it or video it and watch it back and take it apart, get somebody else to take it apart and go, how can I make this better? So it is practice, but it's intentional practice. The intention to be better.
Sir, you are actually, I have learned a very quirky thing from you, and which is very practical, that perfect practices makes perfect, right? That practice with feedback, right? So it is a very new thing I have, heard first time in like that. Practicing unintentionally will not, create a actually relevant, outcome. But perfect practice means perfect. So it is very good, great thing. So, sir, as we are approaching to the end of podcast, I'd like to ask that what are your advices in regard of communication skill? Top 3 advices which you think that it is important to learn, right?
Well, firstly, you'll notice that I don't necessarily always answer the question. So you've asked for the top 8, and then now you're asking for the top 3, and I've chosen not to do that because I want to be clear about one message. Right? So communication comes from the Latin word communio, and communio means to share. So we have only communicated when there is shared meaning and understanding. So communication is not broadcasting. Right now, I'm in a room by myself, broadcasting through this microphone to your audience. It's a little communication because you and I are dialoguing. You made a point about practice, and I made a counterpoint about that. And so we begin to share an idea and understanding. During the pandemic, we were able to measure leadership communication through technology such as Slack or Yammer or WhatsApp, the various. And we saw that leaders were broadcasting. They weren't dialoguing. Only 8% of leaders were dialoguing. They were putting something out and inviting a response. And so in my 2021 book, The New Leadership Playbook, you will hear me say, or read me say, that leadership is a conversation one-to-one and a conversation one-to-many. Because I learn every time I speak, because I stop and I listen. If we're only speaking, we're learning nothing. If we're doing all the talking, so communication is sharing. So when somebody says something to me, I'm very active in my listening and going, okay, well, what does that mean to me? And I'll check with the speaker. Is that what you mean? Am I understanding this correctly? Right. When I'm speaking to people, I will stop and say, do you understand what I'm saying? What do you understand by what I'm saying? So we make sure we're on the same page. So many people speak and believe that people have understood them, and the reality is that is not true. And so for me, I use a metaphor for communication, and that is a submarine. A submarine finds its way through the water. It can't see, but it sends out a sonar. It sends out a ping, and it listens for the pong. It listens for the echo. And just as I said, practice requires feedback. We constantly need to be listening for the echo. How are people responding to us, our message, and our actions? Is it the way we want it to be, or do we need to make an adjustment? Because remember, leadership is taking people to a shared objective. If they're not understanding that, we need to adjust our message. And so rather than top 3 things about communication, I'm going to give you that one thing, that communication is shared meaning and understanding. Do that, and the other 2 things don't matter.
Very valuable thing you have, explained in very simple words. So thank you so much, Andrew, sir. And actually, a lot of viewers will make the most of advices, whatever you have shared about communication, leadership, public speaking, time management, and your journey, your self-leadership book. So a lot of people will learn from this, and viewers, you must check it out, his books, which will very incredible and full of practical insights. So, sir, you will send me the links, and I will add in the description.
Sure. Well, they can just need to go to selfleadership.com is my website. I'm Andrew Bryant on YouTube, and I'm Self Leadership on Instagram. So feel free to follow along and get all the free content I'm pushing out there.
Right. So thank you so much, sir. This is our podcast. Thank you so much again for taking out your time. Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Namaste.
Namaste. Thank you.